It was good, y'all. It's your boy JD6 here with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man. He's Christopher Tenpenny. I'm Keegan Russell, and this is the KC Sports Authority podcast. Welcome in if you're checking us out over here on YouTube, where you can find the podcast. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below. We'd appreciate that. If you're checking us out over on Spotify, listening on the go, we also appreciate you over there listening in your free time. Hit that follow button, leave us a 5-star review. And of course, you can hit us up on any of our social medias at KCSA Pod below. All right, well, the Royals wrapped up an 82-80 season, just missing the playoffs by a couple of games, and thought we would get into just a recap of the season, some of the highs, some of the lows, the things we enjoyed, and then kind of set up where our offseason might take us as we get into Royals offseason content talk for the next couple of weeks. But Chris, just first thoughts on the season we had here in Kansas City.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, it's exciting to be disappointed about an 82-80 season. Like, that's where the Royals are at. And I know there's been some, quotes and stuff from Michael Lorenz and other people going around how that's like a good thing, from coming off the 100 loss season in 2023 to now being disappointed they missed the playoffs. But like, that's where this team was, and that's a good thing. Like, it was still fun. They still kept you captivated. All 162, basically, maybe more like 155, but like, you were in it. You kind of had a little bit of hope. You could see this team. It was, even when they were losing, it was still close games. Like, at the end of the day, it's about winning championships, and this team was far from that. But at the same time, baseball is about entertaining, and these Royals, back for 2 years in a row, have entertained the hell out of us.
Yeah, back-to-back winning seasons. We have only seen that a handful of times in the club's existence.
Like the 7th winning
you
season.
And I have only seen that twice in our life now.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, a success. We've talked about over the years that with baseball, finishing at 500 and above is considered successful, whether you make the playoffs or not. But the Royals came in with expectations to not just be sputtering around 500, but expectations to either make it in as a wild card team or win the division. They finished the season 6 games out of the division. Still don't know how on earth the Tigers just completely fell apart over the last 3 weeks and let Cleveland, who has a mediocre team at best, fight their way back into it. But Royals miss out on that. They also miss out on the wild card by 5 games. But it felt good knowing that they were still in the race up until the last 3 weeks of the season. Now, I know we basically said we kind of felt mid-August, late August, that it just felt like this team didn't have it in them. Injuries started to pile up. The offense was hit and miss. And when it was hot, then the defense and pitching struggled. But all in all, 82-80 season, I think we would still take that considering where this franchise has been the last 35, 40 years. But would you say, in regards to expectations, though, it's a disappointment?
Yeah, I think so. It's tough because I was kind of looking back to see, like, what you and I were kind of talking about, or what, just the discussion was going into the season. And there was concern with some of the moves or lack thereof that, this was going to be a 78-79 win team just because they didn't feel like they really increased the offense. And, that maybe that was clearly a little low because even with the injuries, they were able to overperform that. But there were also plenty of people that when India got brought in that thought that was the missing piece and this team was going to win 88, 90 games and win the division. So just kind of depended on what you felt. So it is overall disappointment because I think people were, especially once they got hot in May, talking themselves into the playoffs again. But they did perform about what you expected. I mean, if Cole Reagans and Chris Bubich and even Seth Lugo stay healthy, I mean, who knows where this team is?
Yeah, you missed 2 of your 3 best pitchers. I mean, Reagans basically missed almost 3/4 of the season.
He only had 13 starts.
Yeah, Bubich misses half the season. Lugo misses, I want to say he missed 5-ish to 6 starts in total, roughly. Now, pitching depth, as we'll talk about, was a strength of this team still throughout the year. They had guys step in when needed. But yeah, all in all, disappointment from where we were coming into the year because we could see the pieces starting to come together coming from last year. We saw, what the potential of this offense could look like when Salvi, Vinny, and Bobby are all hitting. Bobby technically has a down year compared to what he's had, but still an all-star. Still, I think he
He's
still
gonna
led the
finish
majors.
fourth in MVP, and he had a
Yeah,
down year.
and I think he still led the majors in total hits.
Yep.
But yeah, down year compared to what he's been at, just below 300. The power dropped off just a little bit, which we'll talk about the power. But you still had some really strong performances out of this ball club. I mean, the fact that you have Vinny and Salvi both hitting 30 home runs, 100 plus RBIs, that's only been done twice in Royals history.
I think they were the first. I think they were the first duo
yeah.
to both hit that mark.
I was
They've had a
thinking
couple
of
guys hit 100 RBIs, but also with the
Yeah,
30.
I think I was thinking of Salvi was the second Royal to have multiple 30 home run seasons or something like that. So you had bright spot there. Vinny started off the season slow.
Right.
And then the second half, he was one of the three best hitters in baseball. I mean, he ranked in the top in the American League for RBIs. After the All-Star break, his power numbers really took a spike in August, late July into August. So bright spot there. Maikel Garcia. So there were some bright spots on here. So let me ask you this. Looking back now, who were the either surprise performances for you up from a positive standpoint or the best takeaways you had from this season? The best of the best.
Yeah, I think number one has to be Noah Cameron. And I know that there's some people that are going to say Maikel because they convinced themselves 2024 was going to be the year of Maikel, and then it wasn't, and a lot of people shipped him off. This podcast did not. This podcast was ready for Maikel. Maybe not to be this, but
Hey, we both said coming into the year that he was our go-to guy for not just most improvement, but like the X factor.
Right. And I was mad that he was being moved around the diamond and was going to be used as a super utility guy. Like that's where we were. So that's why Maikel, even though he is probably nationally that player people would pick, even a lot of people in the fan base would probably pick Maikel, Noah Cameron by far. Cause you started to hear inklings about him last year, and he's part of the depth plan this year. And then he made that start against the Rays in May, and he, went 6 1/3 no-hit innings or whatever it was, but it was kind of hard hit. It felt a little lucky. You were like, oh man, is he going to be able to sustain this? And he did. I mean, he finished with the year with a sub-3 ERA. He's going to be, probably finish 4th or 5th in rookie of the year voting. Like, he had a great rookie season, and really, like, honestly, if a couple guys stay healthy, he was going to save this season, essentially giving you 5 deep. Now, again, the Royals just couldn't stay healthy, but Noah Cameron was a huge surprise. I think 24 starts or something like that, and he was just nails pretty much every time out.
Yeah, he put together one of the, I can't remember who put this out there that I saw on Twitter, but it was like top 5 rookie starting pitcher seasons in like the last 20 years as far as like statistics go. Up there with guys like Paul Skeens. Not as dominant as Paul Skeens, but yeah, the sub-3 ERA, solid strikeout numbers, gave you length. He wasn't just going 4.5, 5 innings. He had some deep games quite often, and a guy that completely burst onto the scene. I mean, if we don't have the injuries early on, we may not have seen him until mid to late summer, and we're not sitting here talking about Noah Cameron going into the offseason being one of your potentially key pitchers in that rotation. So yeah, I think I would agree with you there. Noah Cameron was one of my top guys too, as my takeaway. I think for me, I'll say Maikel just because he, I think, exceeded expectations by far, and finally put together an entire season of consistency, playing third base, playing Gold Glove caliber third base. Doesn't have the power pop that guys around the league have, but a guy that you moved him into the 4 spot as a cleanup hitter. Again, probably because the Royals don't have some power, but a guy that was spraying the ball over the field. Tremendous season. Should have been an all-star starter, and is definitely part of this core, which gives the Royals probably the best left side of the infield defensively in at least the American League, if not all of baseball, but certainly a duo that can compete as the best left side of the diamond in the game.
Yeah, I mean, all around they are up there defensively, offensively, just all around players. I mean, you got Bregman and Story, you've got Pena and Correa, and those are really the only ones that like jump out at me. I mean, unless you want to just be like superstar and take Jose Ramirez and whoever's playing next to him that day, that's obviously going to be a great duo. But like, they really do have one of the best infields in baseball with the way that Vinny played this year, and I know second base is a huge hole, but I mean, Massey hit like 330 down the stretch.
Yeah.
So like, if I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that plays more than like 100 games, but if you can get 100 games of Massey hitting 280 and with a little bit of pop, that is the best infield in baseball. Without him, they're still probably in the top 5 with just the production that Bobby and Maikel give you alone, being 2 of the most 10 valuable players in the American League this year.
Yeah, 100%. That trio right there. Salvi coming back next year.
Carter Jensen
made up. That's what's going to go next. Is some of the other surprises here. I was going to talk about the young guys here, but that core that you already have locked up, Salvi coming back for another year. As if you figure out what you're doing at second base, you've got one of the best diamonds in baseball for sure that can compete at the highest level.
And this may be a hot take. I don't mind a Massey India platoon to go into it, or some version of that, where they plan on India being in the lineup most days and Massey to be in the lineup against righties most days. Like, that doesn't bug me as much as most of the fan base. I think both have, especially India, have shown that they're better than what they played like this year. I mean, there was a lot of pressure on India, and I think he felt that and it just kind of spiraled. I'm willing to give him more. Some people are talking about trading him. He's at his lowest worth right now. I think that
he could be a non-tender candidate.
Yeah, he could be a non-tender candidate, but I don't even think that's going to happen. I think they're going to roll with him next year, him and Massey, in some capacity.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of that in the offseason, but he seems to me like it's just worth keeping him next year, and hope he gets some of that value back, whether he's a flip candidate next year or if you get 85% of what you were hoping you'd get from India. That's still a good part of this lineup, because you do have missing holes in this lineup, but you're not asking your second base part of the lineup to be that much with the way things look like they're going for the next year.
Right.
But let's talk about some of the younger guys that had their debuts throughout the year. Jack Caglione comes up super early, way earlier than you and I talked, way earlier than we both projected. I think we both said mid-July. Injury, concerns, if that happened, might set him up sooner or after the All-Star break. And it didn't take very long for him to go through AA and AAA to start the year before he was up here. Struggled, went down, came back, but he had some nice moments. He hit one of the longest, him and Carter Jensen both, 2 of the longest home runs in Kauffman Stadium history. So both of those guys, some legit raw power. But we saw Cags this year. We saw Carter Jensen come up. We finally saw John Rave break through. Some guys on the pitching side too. And then, of course, the acquisitions of Berger and Kolek after the All-Star break and around the trade deadline. But tell me about these young guys. What stood out to you the most, and what has you the most excited moving into the offseason in spring training?
Yeah, sorry, I'm dog sitting a couple Goldens, and so if you hear some dogs in the back, but
they're excited about the young players too.
Yeah, they are. I mean, why not? It looks like they got a couple dogs, and like with Cags and Jensen, and Cags' numbers were really disappointing at the end. Overall, like in the 62 games, he just wasn't getting production, but a lot of the underlining stats are encouraging. Now, underlining stats only get you so far. MJ Melendez at times has had really good underlying stats and has never let it spiral negatively and never was able to get it to click. So hopefully Cags doesn't do that, but he takes the positives and works on what he can. And we'll see what he looks like next year with a full offseason in right field, maybe a little bit more polished. I didn't like really the attitude towards the end of the season. Like, I think they didn't play in those last 2 games. I don't think they officially came out and said anything why, but if you saw that his final at bat against the A's on Friday night, the third to last game of the year or second, he looked so checked out. And then he had to play in right field where it looked like he didn't care. And then he didn't play in the final 2 games of the year. And I think that needs to be worked on a little bit. The major leagues is hard, and you're going to fail, and it's going to be a whole 162 whether you make the playoffs or not, and you mentally have to be a little stronger than what he's shown. So that is a concern, but the power is real. The exit velocity is real. When he was trying, right field it wasn't good, I don't think, but it was way better than I was expecting. A first baseman that had a month out there, 2 months out there, looked like. So a lot of encouraging signs, but also a lot of things to be like, tilt your head and be like, man, you're going to have to get this together, because raw potential is only going to get you so far in this league.
And I think you can kind of see the trajectory of development that the Royals will spend with him. Like you said, he's going to have a full offseason dedicated to the rest of his career, primarily being a right fielder DH. So he's going to get a lot of time, hopefully with Rusty Kuntz out there, developing that glove in the outfield and his arm. I thought, his strikeout numbers were kind of what you would expect with a rookie. He didn't get, I mean, there was times, I think Vinny touched on it in one of his post-game press conferences or when he was on, 96.5 The Fan or something, but there were times where the two of them would talk and it's like, all right, Jack's getting pitches he's not normally seeing because he's not used to, the major league guys. And so Vinny's like walking him through, hey, in this situation, here's what they're looking to do to kind of help him prepare. Because there were times where he was swinging at things he shouldn't be swinging at. He was letting things go that he should have swung at. But overall, it's not often Oakland or the Vegas Athletics aside, because they have several rookies that just popped off this year, but it's not often that you get a rookie that just comes in and starts raking from day one. Clearly we saw the power there, the raw power. He had a lot of hard hits, even if he wasn't driving the ball, getting a lot of air underneath it, but a lot of hard hit outs, a lot of line drives, grounders. So if he gets a little bit of lift throughout the offseason, works on his swing mechanics, fine tunes it, I think the potential is there for sure. And you're not asking him to be a 30 to 40 home run guy, but if he can consistently give you a 20 to 25 bombs a year, 75 RBIs in the 5, 6, 7 spot, I think you'd be okay with that. I think the frustrating thing is as you look around baseball, more teams are starting to get their top draft picks to perform at a quicker level and at a high level more than other teams. And the Royals just have never seemed to be that type of franchise where they're outside of Bobby Witt and I guess Maikel Garcia, where your rookies just perform immediately. But it's got a lot of potential for sure. And if they can tap into even a portion of that, I think he's got a huge impact. But let's go to Carter Jensen, another guy who was smashing the ball in Double-A, gets to Triple-A. He's kind of competing with Blake Mitchell down the Triple-A level, who's going to be the first of those catchers to get up here. Cags goes to Triple-A, and we see that the two of them together in that lineup at Triple-A had some legit power. And then Jensen gets the call up here towards the end of the year after we trade Freddie Fermin, who, shout out Freddie, hitting the walk-off hit to secure their playoff spot with the Padres, and hopefully he has a good postseason. But Carter gets up here. I don't remember if it was part of the September call-ups or if it was
it was part of the September call-ups. So,
but he had a pretty good month. I mean, again, another guy that we saw legit power potential.
Yeah, 482. I mean, he hit a home run 482. Like that's all you need to know about the power potential from the 21-year-old Carter Jensen. Like he's a dog.
And with the emergence of that one of the big questions this offseason is going to be, is there a guaranteed spot for Carter Jensen on this 25-man going to next year? If not, what does he need to do to secure that? But if the potential is there and the power numbers are real, what does that look like split time next season? Because we know Salvi will be another year older, and Salvi had, I think, one of his 3 best seasons in his career this year overall. And Salvi's getting another year older. They're going to continue to DH him and play him at first. And he's going to do everything he can to not take a day off. But you don't have that Freddie Fermin type guy in the system right now. So maybe Carter can be that backup. But thoughts on him and what his future looks like?
Yeah, I mean, it was a hell of an audition, to make this roster and, a team that needs offense and the way he was swinging the bat. The issue is, Salvi, DH, left-handed, all of that kind of being clogged, that I am interested to see if he does make this roster out of camp. I do like the idea of, kind of keeping 3 catchers all year long. Now, obviously, there's some risk there because it makes you less flexible. If someone gets banged up, it's harder to sit him for a day or two because you don't have the flexibility, position flexibility on the bench. But, one of my gripes and a lot of the fan base gripes is just how Contreras is always like, hey, if they're on this 26-man roster, they're going to be used, which is great and all. But also we saw way too much Nick Lofton, when Kevin Biggio was up here. We saw you see way too much of those guys because he finds a way to get them into the roster in the lineup 2 to 3 times a week. So if you're carrying a third catcher whose job is to catch on Sunday against, a lefty or whatever, now all of a sudden you've got Tolbert as your pinch runner, a third catcher, and then, one guy that's like a Lofton or a Frazier or, a Willie Castro, maybe, whatever that is. And so I like that you will get more of a set 9, which I think I think there's value in that. I think there's value in knowing where you're going to play, where you're going to hit in the lineup. We're so stuck on analytics that, does it really matter if a guy with a 670 OPS against lefties is hitting over a guy with 650? I think it's just too much at that point, where you guys and that's where the Royals are at right now. So I would third catcher and allowing Carter to be on this roster with a third catcher, like a Melee or a veteran or something again, would I think be beneficial to this team next year.
Yeah, and he's going to have that opportunity. I don't think Melee's under contract for next year. So they're going to be looking for to add a veteran catcher because that's what they do. I don't think you'll roll in with a 21, 22-year-old backup catcher as the primary option. But he's going to have some nice competition there, and yeah, it'd be good to see a full spring training of him mixed in at the major league level, of course. How about any other younger guys you want to touch on? I mean, John Ray really didn't do anything to excite us. Tolbert hit.
I like Tolbert in his
I know
role.
you're much bigger on Tolbert than most of the fan base right now.
Yeah, I think he's great for what he's asked to do. Be a pinch runner who can play 7 different positions and hit a lefty every now and again. I mean, he had decent numbers against lefties in a small sample size. I don't need him in there a lot.
You're hoping he's not getting 200 at bats a year.
Right. 1 start a week max. I mean, it's okay for a week to go by, 10 games to go by, and he hasn't started, but he's gotten into 4 games as a pinch runner. I'm okay with that and being a position. And I think that is one of the positions they should, later he got in a little bit more, but early on in the season, he wasn't starting very much. He was just clearly the pinch runner. And I think if they're winning and then kind of have more of a set, getting a left fielder or other things you want to kind of get into here in a minute, I think that he has a lot of value, more so than a Rave, more so because he can play second, he can play short. He just makes it to where if you're going to carry 3 catchers, his versatility is huge, paired with one other guy that maybe can play 6 or 7 positions.
Yeah, super utility, and there's a lot of guys out there that can play that super utility role. And I'm hoping, like you said, Willie Castro is one that I love. Didn't have a good second half of the season with Chicago, but that versatility, he just feels like he would fit in well for sure. So we'll talk about him later. How about some of the negatives? Let's go into some of the biggest disappointments. I think for me, it probably starts with the Jonathan India conversation of you trade Brady Singer, a legitimate 3-4 starting pitcher that's been relatively consistent, for the potential upside of what India was supposed to bring. And India he had moments, but the defense was clearly not there at all, which was a question mark coming into the year. He was never good enough to be a consistent leadoff hitter. I didn't like how they started the season with him between third and outfield. I think he got off to a rough start, and that really crushed a lot of the season. But to me, I think India is one of the bigger disappointments because that was we're going to get the answer to a problem we have, which is needing a consistent leadoff hitter. India has shown that, and he gets here and has probably one of the worst seasons of his career. Still has, the opportunity to recover from that. But I think the conversation of disappointments probably starts there.
Yeah, and I just want to group it as second base as a whole. I mean, the reason India was being messed around with in left and at third is because you thought Maikel Garcia was going to be a 5 hitter. The way he played last year and has played in the postseason, there was real excitement with Maikel Garcia being a guy that could have around a 750, 760 OPS, play Gold Glove caliber defense, and play 100, 110 games and be a real threat there. And that didn't exist either. At least India was there every day. I think he had one short stint, but he was available every day and, had some good games and had some good moments and finished with a positive WAR, for whatever that's worth. Massey was terrible the first 2 months and then was gone for 3 months. So I I just group it as an entire position because if one of those guys clicks and gives you the offense you were kind of expecting, it's probably enough to get you those extra 4, 5, 6 wins that you need. Maybe not quite, but like it makes you squint a little harder and be like, hey, we're at 85 wins with 2 to go or something. Maybe it's a miracle. I think the entire position really let this team down because there was a lot of hope in both those guys, and neither one delivered for different reasons.
Yeah, the best second base we got, you could argue, was bringing Adam Frazier back.
Oh, yeah, not even a question. He was incredible. And
fans had no desire for that at the beginning of the year. And then when the trade happened, we're all like, okay.
They need to listen to us more because last year I was
about it. He was having one of the best years of his career this year. So, I mean, not a large sample size because he's not that kind of player now, but he was probably the 4th or 5th best hitter on this team down the stretch.
I liked Adam Frazier last year. I mean, I know his numbers were way worse last year, but like if you just watched him every day and didn't get caught up in the actual numbers, which I know it's such a weird thing to say in baseball because at the end of the day, results do matter. But you could tell like he had an impact and that he would.
Yeah, he gives you competitive at bats.
Yeah, like I know the OPS I think and started with a 5 last year, so like I get that if you just base it off that, he was bad, but like everything else seemed to fit. He seemed to make plays when he needed to. He seemed to fit in with the clubhouse. Like I really liked him last year on 2024, and lo and behold, he comes back he basically does the exact same thing with getting a few extra hits to drop. A few of those extra soft liners that were caught by the shortstop got over their head this year, and his numbers jump up. And then always a hero. It's like this was the same dude as last year. He just got a few more decent hits, and like he's a very good ball player.
So offense as a whole was like probably the biggest frustration the whole season because you had guys that were getting it done, but then you had so much of the lineup that wasn't, that you were losing games 2-1, 3-2 because again, your starting pitching, your bullpen was there for most of the season, but this offense just couldn't get it done. They finish 26 out of 30 in total runs scored at 651. And a lot of that, honestly, they were second to last or dead last pretty much until August. And then, of course, the bats really heated up in August, and then they went on a nice run there. But that was the big question mark. I think of Royals, I was trying to find it if I can pull it up, but Royals were one of the worst teams with runners in scoring position this year. Just couldn't get those guys over. They were getting them on. There were plenty of times they were getting them on, but it was the typical ground out double play, the fly out, the pop up, all that kind of stuff. And that's obviously going to be one of the biggest question marks going into the offseason is what can JJ Piccolo do to bring in that middle of the order run producer? You've got the guys that get on base. You've got the table setters. You could probably still add in another one of those pieces, but who's the guy that's going to be driving the runs in consistently? And I say that despite the fact that Salvi and Vinny have 100+ RBIs each, but the drop off on the rest of the team was very evident. But we saw, again, after the All-Star break, team looked pretty good. Your 1 through 6 was pretty consistent overall. Once they started figuring out that Maikel was a good 4th option or 4th in the lineup option, Adam Frazier coming in, Mike Yastrzemski, the last second grab at the trade deadline. Very big impact, and he's a guy that we'll talk about too. Of should he be back? What does he look like going into the next year? But just thoughts on offense in general, and is that probably the biggest question mark going into the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, it was the biggest reason this team failed, even with all the starting pitching and injuries. Like this team just didn't hit enough, and Salvi had a great year for his age and as a catcher, but like he's not a 4-hitter. He's too streaky to be your everyday 4-hitter. And that's where he was. He's in the 4 or 5 hole every day. And it would just have been really nice to have one other guy to lengthen that lineup, because what you were getting, you were having your Drew Waters, your Raves, your Cags, who was bad, Izzy was fine, but he's still limited. Like those were your guys, India at the end of the year, Massey towards the beginning of the year. Like those are your guys hitting after Salvi consistently. And like those are black holes. Those are, you're
no protection behind
0 for 5 stretch. And if Salvi's in a cold streak, which he was for the first 2 months, now all of a sudden you're literally relying on 3 players. And it's like, that was very evident early on and why this offense struggled so much, because there just wasn't enough consistency throughout the lineup. Like I don't need everyone to be an 800 OPS guy. But I need you to be a guy who can put together consistent at bats and at least get on base and keep the line moving during different parts of the season. They just didn't have that.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see as the MLB playoffs are underway, I think you're going to see that the difference between where the Royals finished the year and where some of these teams ahead of them are talent-wise. Yeah, I think the Royals have the talent. They have the starting pitching, they have the bullpen, they have the star power, they have the key pieces. But that 1 through 9, you can just look around the rest of the playoff teams, and even Cleveland, who is again mediocre roster, they're putting runs together. Detroit, we saw, despite their epic collapse, Detroit was scoring over 5 runs a game, and they had guys that could mash, 1 through 7, 1 through 8, that could get you 20, 25 homers at any given night. We always know what the Yankees can do. The Red Sox, as the season progressed and they got guys healthy and they brought some of their younger guys up, you saw the real power numbers. And if the Royals wanted to have it, not only make the playoffs, but have a deep playoff run, you have to score runs. And they went through stretches where they did. They went through stretches where they didn't. But it was very clear that you needed that sure thing as your middle of the order bat. We tried all sorts of guys. Some had success, some did not. Again, Yastrzemski was a huge addition that gave you a nice push in the second half of the season there. But you really need to go into this offseason. And I think Vern said it. I heard Vern say this on the radio today. He said something like, I don't want to hope that so-and-so is going to figure it out. Like, I don't want to rely on Cags as a sophomore professional baseball player being a 25 and 90 guy. I don't want to hope that Michael Massey is healthy enough to put together a whole season. I don't want to hope that somebody figures it out in left field. Like, I want a sure thing. I want a guy who's going to come in from day one, and you're not worried. You're not looking down at the lineup going, man, we really need our 6-hole hitter to give us a good week. No, you want that guy that you can just plug in and know he's going to give you that. And I think, to me, that's where the offseason turns to, is that's the number one target, whether it's the second base power hitter, outfielder. I think we both agree it's probably outfield. Whether that's finding that third baseman, you move Garcia back to second, which I don't think is going to happen. But who is that guy that you're going to go target free agency or the trade market that can really be the punch you need to mix in? Because you've got the guys at the top of the lineup. If Vinny even has close to what he did last year, or even gets better, you've got one major run producer there. If you move Maikel back to the leadoff spot and he gets on more, Bobby's numbers are probably going to go up a little bit too. But you got to have that threat. And I think that was the thing we saw this year, is the Royals just did not have the power threat. I think when it came to home runs, they ended up finishing 26 out of 30th again, 159, quite a ways off from the average MLB team. And that, to me, is number one going the offseason, is how do you increase the power, even if it's not just home runs, because again, Kauffman Stadium, you're not getting a ton of those, but you need guys that can drive runs in. Because I would be impressed if Salvi replicates what he did this year next year throughout the full season. But asking a 36-year-old catcher to put up 30 home runs and 110 RBIs again is not what I want to bank on.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Like, I just think that even this year with Salvi, like, there was just he's always been streaky, but it was just is even more so. Like, I know WAR is a bad thing to go off of consistently, doesn't mean everything, but he finished with the same WAR as India. Now, I think we would all come to agreement that he was much more valuable than India. That's not what I'm trying to say, but I'm just saying there were plenty of holes in his game to where he is still not a guy that, like, you can rely on every day from a production standpoint. Now, from a leadership, from a getting guys over the hill, obviously he's huge in the lineup, but like, I need him hitting 6th or 7th. Like, if he's hitting 6th or 7th, this lineup is awesome. If he's hitting 4th or 5th, this lineup has big problems.
Yeah. So again, Royals offense is probably the other biggest talking point of the season. I mean, they finished bottom 5 in too many categories: runs scored, home runs, walks. They finished bottom half in stolen bases, despite the fact that they were a pretty good base stealing team. They just didn't do a ton, and they got caught more than we're used to seeing. But the offense clearly has a lot of need moving forward. I think the last thing I was going to kind of end up here, and then we'll do plenty of Royals offseason talk as we continue on. But you feel pretty good about your rotation going into next year, even with some of the injury concerns. Michael Wacha missed a little bit of time towards the end of the year. Lugo clearly started to regress the second half of the year. But you had enough guys show you something that, once again, going into next season, you feel like starting pitching will be a strength and a position that you could potentially use to upgrade at some of these positions on the offense.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see too. But the Bubic injury is what I'm monitoring the most. Was it really just more of a shoulder thing that he's not going to really need surgery? He's going to be good, or is this going to be something that keeps bugging him and comes to March and all of a sudden he's still not 100%? So that's the one that is interesting because they really didn't give a lot of information. I would like to believe that he's going to be good and okay. Makes him a potential trade guy as candidate as well. But if you go into next year, it's like, which 5 do you pick if everyone's healthy?
Yeah, obviously, who's the odd man out?
Yeah, it's like Reagan's, Lugo, Wacha, and Bubic are locks if they're all on this team. And it would be like, oh, Noah Cameron, he's a lock too. But then you look at the stuff Ryan Berger has, and it's like, I kind of like the stuff that Berger has more than Cameron, or I like the youth more so than Lugo and Wacha, which they're making too much money and they've been very
good. Unless somebody calls you and says, hey, we need Lugo.
Right. I wasn't trying to suggest that they were in jeopardy of losing their spot, but it's just when you start going through, it's like, oh, by the way, we had Kolek who pitched 27 innings in September to a 2 ERA. So it's like that guy isn't even getting considered for a spot opening day, and he was maybe your best pitcher in September. Mm-hmm. So it's like Bailey Falter is going to be DFA'd probably, and he was a guy that he's be an okay 5 starter on a lot of playoff teams because I know his Royal stint wasn't great, but he's got enough of a track record to where if you went into a season with Bailey Falter as your number 5 with a decent 1 through 4, you wouldn't be bummed. It would be like a Michael Lorenzen or whatever how they did this year. He's not even going to be on this roster because you have 2 or 3 guys better than him that are already not going to get a spot. So the starting rotation is set. It's a big reason why they may look to move one of them again because you can't put all these guys in AAA. The vets absolutely can't. But, what is Steven Kolek at 28 years old going to get being a AAA? Yeah. So I'm curious to see what the move is because, they have so much starting pitching. It's a good problem to have. Obviously, it can evaporate just as fast as you have it, like we saw this year. But it's unfortunately something that they're going to have to do is move on from one of these guys at least.
Yeah, and of course, like I said, we'll talk more about that as the weeks progress. I guess let's finish up with playoffs have gotten started. What's your World Series looking like?
Yeah, luckily we're doing this, where the Red Sox are already down 4-0 because I was kind of hoping, we get a Phillies Red Sox. Don't think the Red Sox are going to make it through the night. So I think I'm going to go. I don't like Philly. I don't want to steal yours, but with the Red Sox probably getting eliminated, I'm going to steal yours and go Phillies Mariners. I think that would be the most fun of the potential matchups.
I agree. I love that one a lot. I've told you all season that the Phillies are one of the most fun teams to watch. What Kyle Schwarber's doing, seeing Bryce Harper healthy again. They've got a really good rotation, strong bullpen, one of the best just all-around rosters in baseball. And, former Jayhawk Rob Thompson up there getting the job done. So love to see that. And then the Mariners, the hottest team in baseball the second half of the year post All-Star break. The storyline with Cal Raleigh doing what he's doing. And by the way, I think he's going to win MVP.
I don't know.
Judge put up another historic season.
I think it shifted enough the last week. I think Raleigh hit 60 and then didn't do anything, and Judge hit 4 homers in 3 days to get the Yankees.
But Judge already does that. Raleigh is doing something that a catcher has never done before, a full-time catcher.
I think.
And I think what gives him the edge is they won their division. They came back to win their division.
We'll see what the writers think. I don't think you can go either way because the best baseball player is Aaron Judge.
True, 100%. It's like the Patrick Mahomes thing in football. The true MVP every season is always Patrick Mahomes.
Right. Even if you take into the whole defensive thing, catcher, squatting, most caught innings, even if you take that into the account, it is still Aaron Judge if you're going best player. But But if you're going most valuable, guy who seeing your catcher hit 60 and be out there every day, I have a hard time not giving it to that guy. I think both guys have great arguments for it for different reasons. And if you I know it's hard in today's age to be able to see the middle and be okay with either result. That's where you need to be unless you're a Mariner or Yankees fan.
I mean, we said the same thing last year with Bobby Witt. Like, Bobby Witt had one of the best seasons in baseball we've seen in a long, long time.
Right.
But Aaron Judge had a better season.
Oh my gosh!
Despite that,
same thing again this year.
Yeah, he's approaching that territory where, either the voters are going to get tired of voting for Aaron Judge, and so they have to go somewhere else, or it's just let's just rename this the NL MVP Shohei Ohtani every year, Judge every year until they start to fall off. But yeah, I like Mariners, Phillies. I do like what the Dodgers have. I mean, that roster is just freaking insane.
Yeah.
But the Mariners have been a lot of fun. I don't know if I think the Tigers have enough offense to get it done in that series. And Skubal, holy cow, was incredible. But the Mariners pitching, I think, has a little bit more starting pitching depth to keep that interesting.
I think the lineup's longer in Seattle. I mean, J.P. Crawford's hitting 9 compared to that Parco Meadows kid's hitting 9 for the, and so
it's Crawford would be a leadoff hitter for a lot of balls.
For at least about half the league, yeah. He's definitely a pretty decent. He's hit leadoff for Seattle at times, but Randy came on so strong, and Randy's hitting leadoff. Like, Julio gets forgotten about. Suarez hit 49 home runs. Naylor, Raleigh, they had
a huge trade deadline.
The Canzone kid that we became very familiar with his 3 home run game against the Royals. He's hitting 7th for them, and it has an OPS in the 800s over 70 games this year, so a decent sample size. Their 1 through 9 is as good as any team in the league, and they may have the best starting rotation. I think Seattle's got the horses as long as they can hit enough, as long as the hitters don't go cold, I guess.
Yeah, and then I do think Brewers Cubs is fun just because of the interdivision playing in the
whole manager
outside
thing,
of the wild card
Council being traded from the Brewers to the Cubs a couple years ago, or was it a full-on trade, or was he just straight up left and got a contract? Either way, I think
it was he left and just signed the contract.
He signed the biggest contract. Yeah, you're right. That's always a fun storyline. The Brewers deserve to be in the NLCS. I hope the Cubs pull it off because the Brewers are just boring, man. I love Christian Yelich. I love Churio too out there in center. That's about it. There's we could talk about Freddie Peralta and some of their other guys. Not as exciting. Who's exciting? PCA, Kyle Tucker, Dansby Swanson has a whole fan base from Atlanta still. That's fun.
And I'll still beat the drum that if Christian Yelich was not as expensive as he would be, he'd be the Royals left fielder next year, 100%.
Yeah,
not financially. He just feels like making way too much money. But cool, we'll wrap up there. Baseball playoffs underway again over the next couple of weeks. We will continue to dive into Royals offseason talks. If you guys have questions, thoughts, ideas, trade candidates, potential free agents you want the Royals to go after, please send them our way, whether it's in the comments here, over on Twitter. We would love to get some of your guys' thoughts, and we'll probably have some other guests on over the offseason too to get some of their takes. But that's where we'll get into next is some of the offseason moves we want to see, guys we want to prioritize, contracts that could be coming up that we need to take a look at as far as contract extensions, expectations, all that. So make sure you are staying tuned in here. Subscribe to the podcast over here on YouTube. Listen to us on Spotify. You can always, again, keep up with us, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at KCSA Pod. But that'll do it for this one. He's Christopher Tenpenny. I'm Keegan Russell. We appreciate it, and we will catch you guys in the next episode.